The Zodiac Killer remains one of the most chilling and infamous serial killers in U.S. history. Active in Northern California during the late 1960s and early 1970s, the Zodiac taunted police and the media with cryptic letters and mysterious codes. Despite numerous investigations and the killer's bold claims of having taken 37 lives, their identity remains unknown to this day. The Zodiac's first confirmed attack occurred on December 20, 1968. High school students Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday were shot and killed near Vallejo, California. This brutal attack marked the beginning of the Zodiac's reign of terror. Betty and David were found near their car at a lover's lane. The scene was gruesome, with little evidence left behind. It would take 6 months before the Zodiac struck again, but this would prove to be just the start. On July 4, 1969, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau were attacked at Blue Rock Springs Park, just miles from the first crime scene. Darlene was killed, and Michael was left severely injured but survived. This time, the Zodiac took credit for the crime. Just weeks after the Blue Rock Springs attack, newspapers in the Bay Area received letters from someone claiming to be the Zodiac Killer. The letters contained cryptic ciphers and details only the killer could know. The Zodiac demanded that the newspapers publish his letters and ciphers, threatening to kill again if they didn't comply. One of his most famous ciphers, known as the Z408, was solved by a schoolteacher and his wife, but it offered little insight into his identity. On September 27, 1969, the Zodiac struck again, this time in broad daylight at Lake Berryessa. He approached Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, tied them up, and stabbed them repeatedly. Cecilia later died, but Brian survived to give police a description of the masked killer. The Zodiac's cross-circle symbol became synonymous with fear. He boldly drew the symbol on Brian Hartnell's car after the attack at Lake Berryessa, a brazen display of his arrogance and confidence in evading capture. On October 11, 1969, the Zodiac killed Paul Stine, a San Francisco cab driver. Unlike his previous victims, Stine was not a young couple, but his murder was significant because the Zodiac sent a piece of Stine's bloodied shirt to the San Francisco Chronicle, taunting the police. Despite intense investigations and multiple eyewitnesses, the Zodiac continued to elude police. Mistakes were made, including a crucial moment when officers stopped and spoke to the Zodiac shortly after Paul Stine's murder, but let him go. The Zodiac relished his ability to toy with authorities. He continued sending letters threatening mass killings and bombings, and even included diagrams for bombs. Yet, his threats were never carried out. The Zodiac sent several more ciphers after his initial ones, but many, such as the infamous Z340, remained unsolved for decades. It wasn't until 2020 that the Z340 cipher was cracked, revealing yet another cryptic message. Over the years, numerous suspects have been investigated, including Arthur Lee Allen, a convicted child molester whose connections to the case were explored in detail. However, no definitive evidence has ever tied anyone to the killings. The Zodiac also reached out to police and media by phone, most famously calling the Vallejo Police Department on the night of the Blue Rock Springs attack, calmly taking credit for the crime. These phone calls added another disturbing layer to his taunts. One of the few survivors, Michael Mageau, who was attacked with Darlene Ferrin at Blue Rock Springs, provided the police with key details about the Zodiac. However, his description of the attacker was vague, as the events happened quickly, and the attack occurred at night. On October 27, 1970, the Zodiac mailed what has become known as the Halloween card to the San Francisco Chronicle reporter Paul Avery. The card contained ominous and playful messages, further cementing the Zodiac's habit of psychological torment. The Zodiac's fame and notoriety inspired multiple copycats. False leads also flooded the police, with people confessing to being the Zodiac or claiming they had cracked the case. These distractions hampered the investigation. While most of the Zodiac's crimes took place in Northern California, he sent letters to newspapers in other cities, claiming responsibility for more murders outside of the Bay Area. However, these claims were never verified. Over 50 years later, the Zodiac case continues to captivate the public and remains one of the most intriguing unsolved cases in criminal history. Despite technological advances and modern investigative techniques, the true identity of the Zodiac Killer remains unknown. In recent years, amateur investigators and online communities have taken up the Zodiac case, using advanced technology and data analysis to try and crack the remaining ciphers and uncover new clues. Despite new theories and potential breakthroughs, the killer's identity remains elusive.